The neighbors watched in complete silence. Nobody warned her. Nobody stopped her, because nobody could believe what they were seeing. There she was, Patricia Holden, standing on her perfectly manicured front lawn, chest puffed out, hands on her hips, while a city worker knelt down and slowly spray-painted a thick, unmistakable stripe of bright blue across her driveway, right through the center. She didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She smiled, because Patricia Holden had spent 4 years telling the entire neighborhood what they could and could not do with their own property. She had issued violation notices. She had filed complaints. She had shown up at meetings with color-coded binders. She had made grown adults cry. And now she had ignored every single warning sent to her. 14 official letters, 3 final notices, 2 in-person visits. She had thrown them all in the trash. And that blue paint, that wasn't a prank. That wasn't revenge. That was the city telling Patricia Holden, we are taking your driveway, and there was absolutely nothing she could do about it. This is the story of what happens when the most feared person in the neighborhood finally gets what's coming to her. If you've ever lived in a homeowners association, you already know someone like Patricia. She moved into Maplewood Estates in 2018, a quiet, well-kept suburb, the kind of neighborhood where people wave at each other in the morning, where kids ride bikes until the streetlights come on. But Patricia wasn't there to be a neighbor. She was there to be in charge. Within 6 months, she ran for HOA president unopposed because nobody else wanted the job, and within 12 months, she had completely transformed the position into something else entirely. She began issuing violations for trash cans left out an hour too long. She sent letters about grass heights being a 1/4 inch over the limit. She photographed a woman's Christmas wreath and called it an unapproved exterior modification. One neighbor, a retired schoolteacher named Donna, put up a small American flag on her porch. Patricia showed up at her door with a printed copy of the HOA bylaws highlighted in 3 different colors, and told her to remove it within 48 hours, or face a fine. Donna cried, and Patricia walked away satisfied. But here's the thing about people like Patricia. They're so busy watching everyone else, they forget that rules apply to them. It started with something underneath the neighborhood that no one had thought about in decades: an old utility easement. For those who don't know, an easement is a legal right that allows a government or utility company to use a portion of private property for a specific purpose: roads, power lines, water pipes, drainage. And it turns out, back in 1987, the city of Maplewood had registered an easement running directly through the back third of several properties on Birchwood Lane, including Patricia's, for 30 years. Nothing had happened with it. The city never needed it. People forgot it existed. But in 2022, the city decided to upgrade its aging stormwater drainage system, and the most direct route, right through those EASEMENTS. Letters went out to affected homeowners in January. Most people responded quickly. They made arrangements. Some had questions. The city answered them. Some asked about compensation. The city provided it. Patricia received her letter on January 14th. She threw it in the recycling bin without opening. ITA's second letter came in February, unopened. Third in March, also unopened. By April, the city had sent 7 letters. A city engineer knocked on her door in person. Patricia opened it, looked at him for exactly 3 seconds, and said, "I don't deal with solicitors." Then she closed the door. Now her neighbors knew what was happening. They had all gotten the same letters. They told Patricia at the monthly HOA meeting. One of them, a quiet man named Greg, who Patricia had fined twice for visible garden hoses, pulled her aside afterward and said, "Patricia, this is serious. You need to respond to the city." She smiled at him the way she smiled at everyone who questioned her. "I've handled bigger things than this," she said. She had not. By October, the city had mailed Patricia 14 official notices. 14 each, one more urgent than the last. The final 3 were sent certified mail, requiring a signature. Patricia refused to sign for them. They sat at the post office, unclaimed, until they were returned. The city had done everything right. Every legal step, every required notification. They had been more patient with Patricia than they needed to be, partly because bureaucracy moved slowly, and partly, honestly, because they could not believe that someone was being this stubborn about a stormwater pipe. The deadline was the deadline, November 1st. Work would begin. And here's what Patricia didn't understand. What she refused to understand was that the easement wasn't a request. It wasn't a negotiation. The city didn't need her permission. They had the legal right to access that portion of her property whether she liked it or not. She had been given 14 opportunities to coordinate, to protect her landscaping, to make sure her sprinkler system wasn't damaged, to have her driveway restored the way she wanted instead of the city's standard finish. She had waved all of those opportunities away. So on November 1st, the city showed up. And Patricia stood outside in her bathrobe, arms crossed, and told the crew foreman that they were trespassing. He showed her the easement documentation. She told him she'd be calling her lawyer. He nodded politely, turned to his crew, and said, "Mark it." And that's when the blue paint came out. Marking a work zone is standard procedure. Bright blue spray paint, highly visible. It marks utility lines, boundaries, the edges of where work will occur. But when that paint hit Patricia's pristine, pressure-washed, never had a cracked driveway, something shifted in her face. The neighbors were watching from their yards. Some had seen the city trucks pull up. Word spreads fast in neighborhoods like Maplewood Estates, especially when it involves Patricia. They saw her jaw tighten. They saw her take a step forward. They saw the foreman hold up the official documentation calmly, professionally, and explain exactly what was happening, what the city had the legal authority to do, and that her landscaping along the easement line would be disturbed in the process. Patricia said, "I will sue every single one of you." The foreman said, "Ma'am, you were notified 14 times. We have documentation of all of it. The work starts today." And then he turned around and went back to work. Greg, watching from his driveway, later said he felt something he hadn't expected to feel. Not satisfaction, not revenge, relief. It was like he said, watching someone who had been holding everyone else to impossible standards finally have to face the same rules themselves. It wasn't about getting back at her. It was just finally fair. The work took 3 days. Patricia's driveway was partially torn up. The pipework was completed underneath, and it was repaved correctly, professionally, but in the city's standard asphalt finish, not the custom-stamped concrete Patricia had originally installed for several $1,000s. She did call a lawyer. The lawyer reviewed the easement documentation, reviewed the city's notification record, and told her quietly but clearly that she had no case. She had been given every opportunity to engage. She had chosen not to. The city had followed every legal procedure perfectly. Patricia filed a formal complaint with the city council. It was reviewed and dismissed. She attempted to bring it before the HOA, which was deeply ironic, considering she was still technically the HOA president. The board sat quietly while she presented her case, and then one of the members, a young woman named Rachel, whom Patricia had once cited for having wind chimes, said simply, "Patricia, did you receive the letters?" Silence. "Because we all got the same ones," Rachel said. "We all responded. We were all given the option to protect our properties. You had the same option." Patricia resigned from the HOA presidency 3 weeks later. She put her house on the market in the spring. Here's the thing. This story keeps coming back to rules only work when they apply to everyone, not just the people who annoy us, not just our neighbors, not just the ones who park wrong or leave their trash cans out or hang wind chimes on their porch. Everyone. Patricia had spent years enforcing the rules with absolute zero mercy, and the moment the rules turned around and looked at her, she expected special treatment. She expected the world to bend it, DID in single quotes. And in the end, the blue paint on her driveway wasn't punishment, it was just the rules, working exactly as they're supposed to. If this story hit different, if you've ever had a neighbor like Patricia, or been the Patricia in someone else's story, drop it in the comments. I read every single one. Like if you think fairness still exists. Subscribe if you want more real-life stories that prove it does. I'll see you in the next one.